wait a minute. Everybody wait a minute. Well, everybody wait a minute. Sunshine, sunshine. Well, everybody wait a minute. Yeah, but everybody wait a minute. Yeah, keep me right there. Everybody wait a minute. Well, everybody wait a minute. Well, everybody wait a minute. Well, everybody wait a minute. Sunshine, sunshine. Well, everybody wait a minute. Yeah, but everybody wait a minute.
They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You can play any and every position. From coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, You talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.
I mix what I like, 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 what I like.
Yes, indeed. What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here, Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be your host. Please don't be stingy. Let somebody know you're here and tell them to join you or invite them to join you. Politely request that they join you. A lot to get to, so I want to skip a number of different things and get right to our guest, who many of us should know, do know, have much respect for. He's, among many other things, host of Warrior Class, a longtime instructor of African martial arts, former military special services, and what I hope to get into a lot this morning is that he is also a highly prolific author and creator of science fiction. I'll ask him if he thinks it's Afrofuturism or how he feels about those kinds of titles and labels. And then we'll get into a number of different things with you about the world, I'm sure. So definitely invite somebody to join you. Get in the chat, join the remixers, who I want to again greet and say good morning to. Peace, welcome. And let me bring up to the stage right now no other than Baba Ojetade, affectionately known as Baba Balogun. What's up, sir? Welcome to the program.
Hey,
good to see you.
Hey, peace, Jad. How you feeling, man?
I am really good, man. It's good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you. Oh, I'm doing great. Injured my back going to see your after seeing your favorite movie.
Oh,
and,
Lord.
Yeah, we had a flat tire. It's freezing. All I had on was something a little heavier than this. So, the body tightening up in the cold, and I'm out to have to change the tire and end up pulling my back. Yeah, I've had back issues from wrestling for so long, and end up jacking my back up, but I'm making it.
We appreciate it. Sorry to hear that. And unfortunately, I am all too familiar with back pain. So anyway, I'm happy to get into your thoughts of the film. But as I said, I didn't want to take up, too much time with you this morning, getting into that, because I am actually fascinated to learn more about your work and having glimpsed at it. But obviously, if there's anything you would want to say now, I want. In fact, we could start here. One of the questions that I do have to ask is someone who has written not only about, and I'm reading now, the African Warriors Bible, but if you. But I have also heard at least one of your audio produced, I don't honestly know what you call them, science fiction audio play, drama.
Audio drama, something like that,
So, I mean, you do a lot that involves a lot of the African world. So as it relates to film and mass media, and even what people want to call entertainment, I'm wondering from your perspective how you view films and entertainment and media and et cetera and so forth, as someone who produces a very particular kind of that work.
Well, my major in college was finance when I was at Howard, and I just did that to make my middle sister happy, to be honest. She graduated from Howard, and she was like, yeah, you should be a neurosurgeon, which is what I was interested in at first. But a professor, in AP physics, this dude, was telling me, I would get a 0 on my AP test and all of that racist cracker. I ended up getting the highest score on the test because of a friend of mine who has passed now, Adolfo Newsom. He was in the class, And he said, look, man, you're smarter than me, but I get better grades than you in physics because you just skate through on intelligence. I put in work. He said, you got to put in work. And so I'm going to put in work with you. We're going to so it was during, I think, spring break. He said, we're going to take the whole spring break and we're going to work on these formulas. And you're going to get this. I ended up scoring higher than him on it. But he had discouraged me. Peter Inslee is his name, the teacher. He had discouraged me so much from anything with science that I said, I'm not doing that. And I was going to major in writing. My sister said, no, do finance. And so I like math. So I majored in finance at Howard and hated it. So transferred out. I went to the military. Then I ended up going to Columbia College in Chicago, which is a school of the arts. So my major is in film with a concentration in screenwriting. Okay, so been heavily in the film. One thing we have to understand about film is when a director works on a film, every second in that film is calculated. So people who think, well, it's just entertainment. No. Every second is calculated. It's to deliver some type of message, some type of image. An image can deliver 10 messages, right? And so they will make you do things. We filmed this movie called Single Link. And my wife is playing this woman who ends up fighting men in MMA. And in one scene, what drives her to it is this MMA fighter rapes her. But he's at her house. She pulls a knife on him. And the director of it made her turn and grab the knife and turn towards him 35 times. Because it's a certain look that he had to have, a certain image of the knife. The knife had to be at a certain angle. So film is purposeful, right? So when I watch films, I if I go with other people, other than my wife, we analyze them. If I go with other people, I'm kind of silent and I'll just do did you enjoy it? Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, me too. And I leave it at that. So we went to see Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, with a group of people. I said, did you enjoy it? Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I said, yeah, I enjoyed it. Well, they said, did you enjoy it? Because I didn't say anything. I said, yeah. And my wife was quiet. And after we talked about it, and then finally, when you posted your analysis, I posted that in we have a group for Balogun, our martial art group. I posted it in there because we're the ones who all went together to the movie and said, this is what I actually feel.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm honored that I am honored by that. I won't front, but yeah.
So, I mean, the way I feel about it is all that you said. The only other thing I'll say is the way they emasculated M'Baku. If you know, in the first film, when they come out there, ooh, 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 this one, first they were like gorillas. This time they're like monkeys. So they emasculated him from the first time you saw him. His call is weaker. So,
by the way, did you understand that the film was saying that Shuri was going to become the Black Panther while he was going to become king? Was that clear to you? Because someone broke that down to me after Dr. Burroughs made that. And I didn't understand that in the film. But anyway, I was just curious.
In the comic books, Shuri had become
right in the comics, definitely, yeah.
I thought they would go there with that, but as far as him becoming king, I just know he mentioned it, at the end.
He said he was there for the challenge,
right?
But nobody was there to challenge. There was no, right. And we never saw a coronation and then previously, the Black Panther had been the king,
right?
The two previous ones. So I thought she was going to become the queen or whatever. But anyway, whatever. Listen, so we can come back to all of that. I'm starting out of order. I did want to really start with the very beginning and get into some of your background, as much as you care to share. Some of the basics. You've even mentioned a number of interesting things, but where does your story begin? If you would tell us even a little bit about your folks. Let's get a little bit of that, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, my parents are from Mississippi. My mother is from Yazoo, Mississippi. My father is from Vaughn, Mississippi. My mother is Southern. Now, she was born in 31. My father was born in 35, but it's Southern or country, if you will, as my mother was, and they're really not anymore. She's been in Chicago longer than Mississippi at this point, but she would call my father a hillbilly. Vaughn is full of hillbillies, so they must really been country. But my father said he never wore shoes until he went to the military. He said the only people who wore shoes where I was from was the preacher and the white man, as the way my father would say it. Preacher and the white man. He says they didn't wear shoes. They would go to school with no shoes. They just, everything they did with no shoes. But when he went to the military, the first time he ever had boots on, any type of shoe on his foot. And he went to the military at 15. So getting away from his father, because they got into it over a woman. So I don't know why at 15 my father was a woman, but I kind of understand. So he brought the woman to meet my father, my grandfather, and my grandmother. And my grandfather ended up knocking down the sister, and they got into it. And so he went off to the military, lied about his age. He was 15. I asked him, what was the woman's name? He doesn't even remember the woman's name. So that was his big regret, that him and his father never reconciled, because that woman wasn't even important, in the scheme of things. But my father went to the military, and while in the military, he was learning martial arts, right? Great at it. He was always a physical specimen, so he's beating everybody. And he ends up, they were in Cebu, the Philippines, but there was a Senegalese chef there, or something of that nature, and he's watching them wrestle and throw each other around, and the Senegalese person says, can I, wrestle? So my father said, sure. And he said, the guy folded him up like a wet piece of tissue. And he said, well, man, you must be a master. He said, oh, no, I learned this as a little boy back home. And then my father said, I have to learn that. And he got a letter written by that person to give to the person we call Uncle Anjai. And when he went to visit Uncle Anjai in Senegal, he was accepted, and they taught him how to wrestle. Then from there, he went to Mali. He went to, from there he learned Mandinka system, and he went into Nigeria and learned what's called Gidigbo. The Mali system was Kili Jawaro. So he began to synthesize them, mixed them with what he learned as an operator. He was one of the first people when they formed Special Forces. One of the first people to be recruited, Black people to be recruited, and he mixed that, and that's what he began to teach people when he got out of the military. I was a little boy. He was in the military in 1950. I think he left in 58. So he was teaching. I was born in 68. 72, we went to see this movie called The King Boxer. It was in Chinese. It wasn't subtitled yet. When it got subtitled here in the States, it was called Five Fingers of Death.
Oh, wow, right.
But we learned it as The King Boxer. And so my father spoke fluent Korean, and a little Chinese. So, but he's watching it and he's understanding enough to understand the thing. I'm watching, just enjoying the fight scenes. And he would say to me every so often, he would laugh and say, "Oh, they said so and so." So I got little bits and pieces what the movie was
Right,
about.
because if your father went in at 15 and 35 was his, so he would have been, so he got sent to Korea. I'm assuming is where he picked all this up, right? Yeah, the Korean conflict. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah.
So he would translate a little bit for me. So I just was enjoying the movements. I said, I want to do that. So when we went home, they would get a kick out of me always explaining the movies, and I would do the whole the voices, the scenes, and they would laugh. I didn't realize they were laughing because I'm doing the whole, like if it was a 2-hour movie, I'm doing 2 hours, and so they would laugh like, "Oh boy, we tired of this boy doing," But I would do the whole, act out everything, the hero, the villain, everything. So I was doing trying to act like I was doing a kung fu move. I kicked and fell and hit my ass. And I was like, oh man, my father picked me up and said, "Boy, you ready to start training?" So I said, "Shit, okay." I'm, in my mind, I'm training kung fu, cool. And I didn't know that it was African martial arts, right? So I said, cool, I'll be doing some kung fu. So to me, to about my 3rd class, I thought I was doing kung fu. But I was like, that why we doing all these throws? Why aren't we doing, the high kicks? And he just told us, this is African, son. This isn't Asian. And to be honest with you, my father had a disdain for anything Asian. He got tortured. He wouldn't talk about it. He wouldn't talk much about anything in the military because my mother said he put in a lot of work, if you understand me. So he wouldn't talk much, but he had these burns on one leg, on his left leg, and I was like, "Daddy, where those come from?" So I was military boy, and my mother told me he was tortured. So I imagine he must have been captured by somebody at some point. But so once he got out of the military, he had a disdain for anything Asian. I mean, anything. You talk about Arabs, he would call everything Japs. Now, mind you, he was in Korea, but he called everything Japs. Japs. He didn't eat Chinese food, Thai food. I love Thai food. I don't like Chinese food, but I love Thai food. I love Indian food. He wouldn't eat none of that. Anything Asian, he didn't have time for it, but he liked martial art movies. That's different from me. I'm not a fan of martial art movies, unless they're exceptional. Most martial art movies, or the old ones, because of memories of going with my father. But I don't like martial art movies. So as I'm learning from him martial arts, I wanted to try it out. So I would try it out on my friends. My godmother was the assistant principal at my school, so she would beat my ass when I would manipulate my friends, like do a high kick at my head, and then I would kick them in the leg and knock them down. And then I hear Adam, my government name, and that's my godmother calling me into the office, and she would tell. In those days, we would get spankings in school, and she would whoop my ass for doing that. And she was like, "You don't do that. You don't set up your friends. You're more skilled than them. You don't do that." And yes, ma'am, still was doing it in the neighborhood, And so I really wanted to put in work myself. I wanted to try this stuff I was learning for real. So I knew I was going to go to the military. I was getting recruited by the Marines in high school. But that didn't work because the Marine recruit, I told him, "Don't call my house." He called, my mother answered, and my mother cursed him out. "Mother, you don't call my house. You don't recruit my son. F you. He's 17, blah, 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 blah." And when I came home, I walked in and she was cursing him out. She said, she hung up, "You're going to college and you're not going, I won't sign it. And your daddy's not going to sign it for you to go off. We're not giving you permission to go off to the military at 17. So that's why I ended up going to Howard, biding my time. The day I turned 18, my birthday is February 21st. The day I turned 18, I went to the recruiting office. The recruiter there, well, first I went into the Marines, and I told them I want to be Force Reconnaissance, which is their form of Special Forces. I want to go in and be Force Reconnaissance. Now, my idea for being anything with Special Forces is because I wanted to teach my people. I felt there was going to be a race war coming. I no longer feel that way, but I felt there was going to be a race war, and I wanted to be one of the people that helped train our people to be prepared. Okay? So I went to the Marines first. I wanted to be Force Reconnaissance. I felt the Marines were harder. He told me, well, we can't guarantee you Force Reconnaissance. You'll be infantry. Everybody starts as infantry. I said, man, I'm not being a bullet catcher. My father told me, like, don't do infantry if you go to the military, right? So I said, and no hate for the infantry. I got a lot of respect for you, but I wasn't doing it, you know. So I said, nah, I'm not doing that. The Navy said, come over. I felt the Navy was just too smart. They weren't hard hitting enough, and everybody wanted me because I got a 99 on my ASVAB.
Oh,
So
wow.
Everybody wanted. They called that a triple alpha or something like that.
Yeah.
So I said, well, no. So I went over to the Army.
Man, they told me I got like an 83 or something like that. And they and they were treating me like royalty. And they told me in the Navy, the average was in the 30s.
Wow.
That's what they told me at the time. Because I was like, why? Because I never thought of myself as all that impressive. And I was like, why are you all treating like the way they were? They were looking at me, looking at the paper, calling each other over at the desk in the MEPS office. Like, ooh, did you see? Ooh. And I was like, yeah, anyway. So 99, I'm not surprised now, but that's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went over to the Army. I said, I go the route of my father. And when I went in there, they were happy to have me, offered me a drink. That's the first time I ever drank alcohol, actually. And when the recruiter I went to, his son is SF, Special Forces. I said, oh, damn, this is, meant to be. So I went out to Fort Belvoir. They have the 12th Special Forces. I went out there and I was training with them early, but when I went out there to meet his son, one of the majors there knew my father. So I was like, oh, this is, this is karma here, And so I go in and, they're talking, the oppressor liber, that's on our pen, Special Forces pen. You'll see that on the patch. The pen is there, right? The oppressor liber, to free the oppressed. So I said, oh, okay. Now, mind you, my father never talked to me about what he did for the military. So I'm thinking, I'm going to be freeing the oppressed. I'm going to get in there. And so I got in the military, did well, put in my packet for Special Forces, got accepted, went to Special Forces school, what people call the Q course. And then I went to work and found out that we didn't really free the oppressed. Our big job was to teach the indigenous people to kill other indigenous people. And
no, you were freeing the oppressed. You were freeing the oppressed from the burden of being free.
right, exactly. Yeah. Boy, I was doing so much good. And and I had questions in it, like, why are we learning these skills? I mean, high level killing skills, right? Why we? But they were valuable. I knew what I was going to use them for once I got out. But I'm like, damn. What? And we're talking about freeing the oppressed. Do we need all this to free the oppressed? Well, we do. I know that now, if you're really going to free the oppressed, you better have some skills behind you. But
I'm just showing people the one of the shots from your book.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just one example of what you were, talking about.
Right.
And just like you talk about in warrior class, all these accidents.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Just
Whoops.
We call them nuggets too. So you get a nugget, some lucky happen. So when I got out the military, to be honest, I started faking sick. I couldn't take it anymore.
Hey, just real quick for Hiram's late self. Where are we in the schedule here, in the life, in the timeline?
86, and I got out 94. Peace, Kalanji. Now, and my students will tell you certain things. So we're contracted. We couldn't speak for 20 years of stuff that we did. So certain things I would not talk on. 20 years to the day, I started telling my students shit. Because I had some students say, I've been thinking about going to the military. My father was, don't do it. Don't do it. And I tell anybody, don't do it. I think, it's preaching to the choir here. But some people watching may think so. My son-in-law is a combat medic. And, I tried to convince him not to go. Two of my daughters went to just trying to follow in my footsteps. One, she's in the Navy. I had nothing to do with the Navy, but when she goes, she wanted to be military intelligence. And they said, you don't, the recruiter told her you don't want to go military intelligence because of who your father is. And that scared her. And she said that they put her in a room she was insistent. They put her in the room to test, and why she didn't do it was she went to take the language test, which is called I don't know what they call it in the military, but it's the DLAT, Defense Language Aptitude Test, or the Defense DLAB when I went in, Defense Language Aptitude Battery, where they determine whether you have an aptitude to learn foreign languages. While she was in there on the test, she said on the computer, she said something came up about me. My name was there. My father's name. Now we're all Adam Swan. My father's name and my grandfather, who's Adam Swan. I'm the third. And she said that's scary. So my grandfather was in the military too. If you look up Adam Swan, you're going to see military for each of us. But for my grandfather, you'll see warrant officer. My grandfather was not no warrant officer, I don't think. That's what they listed, and I got to do research why. Whenever black men were in the military, they listed them as, and they done something exceptional, they would list them as warrant officers for some reason. But they weren't really warrant officers. I found out why, and it's something insidious, but I can't remember now. If any of you all know in the chat, please put it there. But so my grandfather, my father, me, all Army, right? And she said, "Why is this on the computer?" So she moved from that screen or whatever and was doing her work, and it scared her. So she became communications. But she got out because she's at Burger King and white girls saying stuff about her or whatever. And I always tell people, out of all my students I've ever had, she's the fastest and the most powerful student I ever had. If she had gone MMA, I'm sure she'd been a champion. She punches the door to the bathroom in Burger King and knocks it off its hinges. And they end up arresting her. She's trying to get at the girls. They arrested her, and she's fighting the police. And so they put her in the military psychological hospital. And so she gets out for psychological reasons. Another daughter of mine goes to the one older. So I have 7 daughters, about to be 8 daughters, and 1 son, right? So another daughter goes up to the military, and she just gets out. She just hated it and faked her way out like I did. So I faked my way out of the military. I faked sick. How you just get sick out of nowhere? So I'm laying at home chilling. I'm reading. Somebody, bling, the doorbell. I said, oh, shit, that's them. So I put the book down. I laid back, and they convinced my ex-wife to let them in the door. It was my two of my sergeants. They come in the house and go right to the bedroom. She's like, how are you? All this? We're fine, ma'am. Where's Swan? And they come right in the bedroom, and I'm laying there pretending to be half dead. And then they kind of feel bad for me. So, sergeant patting me, but she's patting and, puts her finger on my neck to see what my pulse is and shit like that. They want to know if I'm faking. So they put a heart monitor on me, all kinds of jobs. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm faking. I can slow down and speed up my heartbeat. So I'm doing all kinds of shit to make it like I'm having heart issues. And I'm like, I'm gonna get out of here. So they said, okay, we're gonna test your blood. They tried to kill me. Put in the IV to put the contrast, to do a CAT scan. They unscrew the tube, and so blood is just coming out. And so I'm like, man, why do I feel so wet right here on my arm? I said, oh shit, and I feel kind of weak. I said, hey, excuse me. And they come in and say, oh, you're bleeding. And so I said, am I going to die? Like that. And I'm thinking, if he says yes, I'm killing him. I'm killing the doctor. I'm killing all that's responsible because they're going to go with me. And he said, oh, no, we're going to stop this. So they turn the thing, stop the blood from coming out. And then they give me a cookie and some soda, tell me to sit there. I had to sit there for a couple of hours, and then I leave. But they tried to kill me. Because they felt I was faking, and they were right. So I get out the military, I come home, I resume going to school. I have enough hours to graduate, but the dumbest thing I ever did in my life, I told my mother, you gonna be a writer? I said, yeah. Now my parents would always encourage us for things. They would never say, well, don't do that. She just said, well, make sure you're doing something else too. I said, well, I do martial arts. She said, no, something. I said, Mom, I'm not getting a 9-to-5 job. I don't need that. And I don't need college to be the writer that I'm going to be. And she says, oh, you do. You need, I said, I don't need that. And I'll show you. And I decided I was going to drop out of college. And she was, my father said, boy, if you do, I'm going to beat your ass, I said, man, I'm a grown ass man. Yeah, okay, I'm still whoop your ass if you. So I stayed in college, but I ended up protesting against this racist teacher who told me, say, Adam, you're the best writer in Columbia, but I want your stuff to be more real. I said, what do you mean? He said, I need rapes under the train stations and stuff like that. The life that you live. I said, man, I ain't never seen nobody raped under a train station. What the hell are you talking about, man? He's like, the black experience. I said, man, that's not no black person I know. That's not the experience. I do know people who've been raped, unfortunately, but not the way you're talking in public under the train stations. And he's talking about, drive-by. I said, man, this isn't California.
Yeah, you said Columbia. Where are we?
Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not Columbia University. That's New York. No, Columbia College is Chicago. And that's the School of the Arts.
Okay.
Completely, right? So I end up talking to other students, and they're talking about him too. His name's Gary Johnson. He was the chairman of the writing department, right? So all of us protested Gary. I led the protest, and administration brought me in, and they said, "Now I'm on scholarship. I couldn't afford to go there without it, right?" But they say, "Okay, we're gonna keep you here at the school. We're not gonna kick it, but we're gonna take your scholarship." So they really kicked me out of school because once I lost my scholarship, I couldn't stay. I'd already told my mother I'd drop out, so it wasn't really harmful to me because I was planning to drop out anyway. I was just scared of my father. So that's how I ended up leaving college. I have enough hours to graduate, right? My oldest sister, she had her PhD, so she's, you need that degree. I said, Phyllis, I got, at the time in Chicago, I had 170 students. I said, I got 170 martial arts students, right? I got 170 students. What do I need to go and get my degree for? Because I pretty much abandoned writing at that time because I got ganked by Marvel. That's a whole nother story. But so I left writing alone.
I'm writing down. I'm making a note.
So she's trying to convince me. So finally, I said, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll get my degree," and never did. And I've been the principal at a school here in Atlanta for a time. A school was like people who've been rejected, students who've been rejected from Atlanta public schools and Fulton County public schools. They had this school called 4th and 1. The NFL they have this thing called Youth Education Town, NFLYET, and they have a school within there called 4th and 1. And I was named the principal of that school. No degree. They thought I had one. I'm saying that now they probably like bastard if they're watching this, but I had even friends of mine who had PhDs who were going to sponsor me to get a PhD. If you look, you'd have to go way back in my Facebook, but I announced that, I was going to go for my PhD. And so my wife's like, "Dear, if you get caught, I said, well, I'm putting in the work. I'm going to put in the work for it. I'm going to earn it. She's like, "Yeah, but I mean, damn, you don't even have a bachelor's." I was going to go for it, and I hadn't tricked my friends who had PhDs. I won't name them because they knew what was going on, right? She said, "Why don't you just get an honorary PhD or something?" I said, I don't want that.
Again, no disrespect, but the honorary doctorates are not PhDs.
Exactly.
So,
oh yeah.
So even even when Kanye recently was running around talking about I got all these honorary doctorates, call me doctor. It's and I am being whatever because I had to work for and I'm still paying for mine, but it's not it's just not the same degree.
So that's what the ED is honorary.
Well, you can actually get an ED. And a lot of people like presidents of universities, like the president of Morgan State, their doctorates are EDs. But whenever people do get the honorary degree, that's what the degree is. They're not getting PhDs.
Okay.
Anyway, I am being petty, but it is the reality of the situation. So, but to your point, in look, like Ward Churchill, I think said, I went to undergrad. I thought I knew everything. I went to the master's degree. I realized I didn't know anything. I got a PhD and realized nobody knows anything. So I feel like, and in many ways, a lot of the institutions, a little bit at Morgan State as well, are increasing their emphasis on what you would be called a professor of practice. As opposed, and as to traditional academics. So it's just another way of getting to the same spot.
Yeah, I was gonna that was gonna be my thing. I was gonna actually go into the college setting and teach creative writing. That's gonna be like the next thing I did. And that was my way in it. Now, when I first got to Atlanta, I was teaching at colleges, several colleges, African martial arts, because I was like the new kid on the block, and I was the only one teaching. Only thing they knew about African martial arts was capoeira.
So I do want to, so real quick, one thing I would want to say is, I just now thinking about it, I think it would be fascinating to teach not what you do in your in my bad, what do you even call, I want to call it a dojo, but what do you even call the spot where you train?
Ile.
Thank you. So not necessarily what you do at the Ile, but kind of like what I remember in undergrad from this dance appreciation class that I slept on when I signed up for it. But the professor was doing their job, and it was like a hard-hitting intellectual exploration of the history of dance. So as a segue to ask you about African martial arts, like I would think it would be great to have a university level course, not on the technique per se of fighting, but the history in particular of the what you and others have been calling, and shout out to Dr. Haight and others for putting me on to the African fighting sciences, would be dope. Yeah, by the way, how do you spell Ile? What do we
ILE? That's
okay.
Yoruba.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. If we were, if you were to do that kind of course, and you were, to introduce some students to this tradition without the actual physical demonstration part of it, how, a lot of people would be, myself included, some years ago especially, would be shocked to even to learn that there are what we would call, or you were calling, African martial arts or African fighting sciences. All we see are the movies, Bruce Lee, wah, 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 wah.
Right.
So what are we talking about here when you're talking about these traditions, and how do they relate to what we understand traditionally is coming out of East Asia?
So when you're talking about African martial arts, and people say, well, is it Nigerian martial arts? First of all, if you said Nigerian, there are 100 cultures in Nigeria. When we're talking about African, so there are things that Africans across the board do that make us African. We don't have to say, okay, we're this, I'm Ateke from Gabon. So when we're talking technique, because the human being only moves so many ways, the technique across the board in Africa is similar. So somebody said to me once, well, wouldn't it be similar to Asian too? No. Take Asian dance and Asian martial arts. I mean, Asian and African dance, Asian dance and African dance, compare them. They're nothing alike. But why? We only have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. Why are they so different? Because it's the mindset. It's your mind that makes it different. People say spirits. Mind is spirit. Your whole body is your mind is in your whole body. It's not just your head, but this is the house of it, right? So it's the mindset. It's not the physical movement at all. So the first thing that I do anyway, I don't deal with the physical technique. We have to deal with the mindset of a person, right? The Yoruba deal with 3 levels of mind, okay, called Ori. So we have Ori, head. We have Ori Nu, which is located at the navel, and navel is very important for our martial arts. And then we have Ipori, the higher head. So that's the inner head, the inner head, and the higher head is at your big toes. We have 3 levels of head, and people think, Jung with the id, the ego, super ego, that bastard stole from the people of Borneo and the people of Africa. When he talks about his archetypes, that's taken from the Orisha. I'm like, come on, dude. I mean, so he didn't create it. I'm not saying that, there aren't some psychologists or whatever that have done some brilliant work, but he brilliantly stole people's shit
But do we know?
Yes.
I don't know any of this. I only know that Freud studied Africa and recognized African origins of a lot of things. I didn't know. Did he study Africa too? Or
Young studied Africa and the people of Borneo. Yeah.
Wow, that's deep.
In fact, there's a priest, I'll just say that, in the African traditions, who's not an African, who wrote a book that's comparing what we do to Jung. Like Jung is I'm like, dude, Jung stole all this from us. But he can't fathom in his mind that this is what we created and he got it, and he was initiated in Africa. But I would imagine, many non-Africans who get initiated in Africa, they still look at that brother initiating them as a nigger. So he had to get it from somewhere. People say the Dogon got their stuff from some French dude. Oh yeah. They credit a French dude with giving them their knowledge of Sirius B. They knew about Sirius B before there was a telescope.
Yeah, I was what?
Yeah.
Before there was a French.
Yeah, French dude named Gaul or some shit like that, Maul or some shit. They've given him the credit on that. The Egyptians, of course, they learned the pyramid to build the pyramids from the aliens. It's never us. So
listen, there is an African teacher of that history who privately believes that despite what he teaches for money, that it was aliens who built the pyramid. I have been so messed up since he whispered that to me at one point, and I have not. I was like, what? Anyway, so yeah. Anyway,
I don't even believe in it. I can believe there are aliens. I don't think they'd be humanoid. We're made up, so we're made up of certain elements and stuff, and we're a machine that fits this earth. Why would something from Saturn look like us? Unless it looked like, a blob or something built the pyramid. I don't know. I mean, it just, stuff. Because I had somebody tell me that martial arts comes from outer space. I've had so much of outer space. One dude at Howard told me martial arts came from the devil. It was from hell. He said, you look like when you all meditate, you do like this. I said, I don't meditate like that. What the hell is that? I said, that's Spider-Man. I don't do like that. So, we spook out on a lot of stuff, man, and stuff we don't do and don't understand. We come up with all kinds of stuff for it, right? And that's the height of ignorance. So for us, we deal with the mindset. So if I was in an academic setting, I would deal with the mind first, the 3 levels of mind. And then the mindset itself of a warrior, because there are certain ways we think. My students always say, man, we think different from other folks, and we're often laughing. We have to think differently. Like any word we're dealing with your protection, I look at the words. Self-defense, we can't think of ourselves as what we do is self-defense. I sometimes use that word because people are used to it, but I hate it. That I call what we do self-protection. Because if you're thinking defensive, I'm waiting for somebody to punch me in my mouth and I defend myself. Somebody tells you, Jared, you walking with your wife and they say, man, I'm gonna smack your wife on the booty. You gonna wait for him to try to smack to block it? Now you're gonna whoop that motherfucker's ass. So it's protection.
See, I don't deal with things like that, Baba. I just put my hand there first.
You ain't got no room, partner. You ain't got no room. I hear you.
That spot's taken, bruh. Nah.
But you know, a student of mine was walking down in the train station with his wife, and dude pats her on the ass.
Wow.
That's why I get that from when I talk about it, you know. And he's ready to go at the dude, and his wife stops him. And the dude's like, "Man, little dude ain't gonna do nothing." And I talked to his wife. I said, "Don't stop him. Don't stop. Don't because this man is trained for over a decade to protect you, his children, himself, and that was the time to do it. That man violated you, so you don't stop him, because what was going to happen? The brother, his name is Kunle. If you're watching Kunle, we used to call him the Wizard because he was so quick. It was ridiculous. He would have dropped that dude. They would have got on the train and been going home before anybody knew what had happened. And what about the police? You can't worry about that kind of stuff if you're protecting your family. You got to be smart now. But I'm walking somewhere out. In fact, I was downtown. Now, my wife did stop me on this one. It was smart. I just got out of jail, so I didn't need to be doing anything anyway. But we're sitting in 5 Points on the bench. 5 Points is like our downtown. And we have a downtown, but it sucks. But 5 Points. And I'm talking about in Atlanta. So we're sitting on the bench. A dude's walking up, and he's looking all antsy. And I said, oh. So I put my hand in front of my wife, and I'm kind of leaning forward. And he pulls out a camera and takes a picture of my wife. And then starts walking fast. I jump up. I was going to break him in half because I just saw in my mind him at home beating off to my wife's picture or some shit. I just knew it was something not right. So and my wife said, babe. She grabbed me. She said, look, there's police, down there. I said, I don't give a damn. She said, hey, you do. Don't, just let him go off with the picture. And I'm just like, this dude, So that was a good time that I was stopped. But because, as I've gotten older, I just think about if I put my hands on you, I'm taking your life. So I try not to, unless we training. So I don't get into those kind of, what he did worthy of his life being taken? No. But back then, I was much younger. I was in my 30s. I didn't give a damn. I'm in my 50s now. But also in my 30s, I was going to blow up Six Flags to get some payback on white folks. I just realized at Six Flags in Atlanta, it's more black folk than white folk. So I said, no, I won't do it because I love black folk. That is crazy as hell, but I was in my 30s, early 30s. I wouldn't think that way now. But that goes to the mindset. So the way you deal with mindset with people, right? Teaching to look for certain things. So don't think in defense. You don't wait for an attack to come. Somebody tells you they're going to kick your ass. Well, that is the attack right there. Somebody tells you they're going to come and kill you on a Tuesday. You should be handling them on a Monday.
I was going to say, I see you Monday night.
Right, exactly. So it's not self-defense. I can't wait for you to come Tuesday and then I block it. I got
to I saw earlier Hiram said something that I feel is very real here. But as we come up on the first hour, I just want to acknowledge that we're I thought I saved the statement, but we're moving fast. There's a lot to cover in Baba Balogun's life, and we're not obviously going to get to everything. So we'll have to have a series of these, or we invite people to obviously tune into Warrior Class so they can get bits and pieces over time. Because you all do share gems. And at some point, I'd like to have all three of you on here for another, discussion. So anyway, I recognize that we're going over a lot of time and a lot of gems are being, passed over. So, but we obviously can't get to every bit of the details here.
Now, real quick, Jed, I
Yeah,
want
go
to
ahead. Go ahead.
address
Go ahead.
something. I don't stay out of so on word class, we engage with the chat.
Right.
So Yipper99 said he sounds more crazy than Diallo. Diallo's from Chicago too, I believe. So, hey, it's a Chicago thing. But thank you, Yipper. I'd be more careful with calling people crazy. That term, we have to be careful because that's people really have some mental issues. I think we all have some issues. But when you talk about, hell, we're behind enemy lines. But when you talk about crazy, I'm crazy like a fox, dude. I'm crazy like a fox. I'm crazy with a purpose. So I know something. All right. So I accept that title. Thanks. All right.
I've been intentionally trying to reduce how many of the comments I bring up while people are talking. I was sensitive to that. I think constructive criticism from a couple shows ago where I with Diallo in particular was using the comments as a weapon. But I'm happy to engage the chat as much as you want going forward. I just didn't want to.
Oh no, I just wanted to say that. So Yipper said, okay, more intense. Oh, I'm definitely that. I was at the barbershop once and somebody talked about, it's you can't choose who you love or something in the bar. Everybody talking shit in the barbershop. But somebody said you can't choose who you love. And it was a brother. I said, man, I never heard a man say that. I said, I've heard sisters say that. And I don't agree with it. I said, because you better choose who you love. You better go in and pick the person you love. You better use intelligence. And I'm going, at it. So the dude say something back and we're going at it with each other, right? People say, man, that dude's intelligent, but he's intense. I'm like, dude here who's the one at it with me, he ain't intense. I've always been a person who talk louder than everybody. I talk with passion. And so I've always been called intense, and I go for it. That intensity, they got me my wife. That intensity got me a bunch of students. That intensity has taught my children, So I'm for me, the world I'm in, you have to be intense.
Yeah, people, I hear intense and people will often use it as a synonym for emotional, and then use that as an attack or a critique, a condemnation of particularly in a patriarchal way of a man's behavior. And I hear that all the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm emotional. What is the issue? What is not to be emotional about? It's not to suggest I'm out of control, but like you said, there's a certain passion here. And why are you not passionate about what's going on? So anyway, like, what's wrong with you? Like, get your passion up, get more emotion. Anyway, but anyway, so right on. And I've lost my track of thought. Anyway, let me just go back. There's a number of things I wanted to raise with you. So you mentioned, you said something earlier about, you mentioned in passing the issue of rape. And if I was reading your book, and I was obviously not, as you I think knew when you were writing it, you were like almost prepping your audience in chapter 2, titled "Thou Shalt Not Commit Rape."
Yes.
And you start off the chapter by saying, I did this right on time. Please, let's control our emotions and read what I have to say, which is based on decades of teaching, training, and observation of my sisters and my 7 daughters and son before having a knee-jerk reaction. Right. And then you say, I was a victim of ongoing rape by a woman that began when I was 4 and ended when I was 5. So I know firsthand how horrific and how damaging rape can be. And I admit I was struck by that. Obviously, we're not conditioned to share these stories as men. We're not conditioned collectively to think that this happens to men, to talk about it. So I was impressed that you did mention it. So I wanted to ask you about not the incidents, obviously, but how you have used those experiences in your work, and what you go on to say in that chapter, even.
But that's why I share it, so I can, because a lot of men have suffered that, and I know people who joke through it, or shoot, that felt good, or I was handling her, because they can't really deal with what's going on. But I wish I could remember their name. There was a sociologist who did a study on men who have been raped by women, and across the board, they all have issues with high blood pressure. Across the board. And I have high blood pressure. And I didn't, until I learned that, I didn't understand why. I eat well, exercise every day. I didn't understand what, and until I learned that. And the person telling me that, the sociologist who was the person who learned from that sociologist who was telling me, they didn't know I had high blood pressure. And so that made perfect sense to me, There's a lot that suffered there, so, I talk about it. I know several people been raped in self-defense, self-protection, in that arena. You run into that often. I was on a panel. They had me on with a couple of police, and they're talking about, issues. Somebody brought up something about rape, and they said, well, if somebody's about to rape you, don't fight it, because fighting it, they could end up costing you your life. Man, after and it was a woman. After she was done, I said, sister, I can't agree with that. If you're afraid, and it's going to cost me my life to fight back. But to be honestly, you've lost a part of your life if you don't fight back, and he takes a part of you anyway. So for me, a part of me was taken when she did that to me. Me and my wife were watching Andre Fisher. This is decades later, right? We're watching Andre Fisher, and he was molested by, I believe, raped by in the movie by.
Are you talking about Antoine Fisher? The
What did I say? Oh, I said Andre. I'm sorry. Yeah, Antoine Fisher. And so he's raped by, and I'm crying. My wife didn't know at the time, so she said, "What are you crying like that for?" And she's kind of, joking, like, "You acting like it happened to you." And that's when I told her, I didn't think it affected me anymore until I saw that. And everything came rushing back. So I can never say I understand fully what happens to a woman when she's raped. But what I can understand the pain I have, so I can just imagine. I believe theirs is worse. But I don't know. So people think because we're not penetrated. Now, some men are, raped by men, they are penetrated. But if you're raped by a woman, you're not penetrated. They think the damage isn't there. But any warrior knows that you can damage the person's mind long before you put hands on them. And so our minds are damaged, which is why we get high blood pressure. Why I had so much anger beyond, I was angry at white folks, goddamn, for all they've done to us, and that's still there. But I would just be angry for no reason sometimes. And that was there. I'm just thankful I didn't gain some crazy hate of women or nothing like that from what she did. I'm thankful that didn't happen. And I think that's just because I have always loved Black women. I ain't talking about physically too, but I'm talking about just the spirit of. I'd see a Black woman smile and just melt. Right. That's from little boy on up. My mother she always was like, my poor baby. He loved women so much. Woman sitting there with my mother. I'm sitting, by her leg, touching her leg and all that. I was just, and I don't know, just in rapture over women, right? So I never lost that. Thank goodness. It just turned into, once I got married, my wife only. Thank God. And my mother, and I say my protection for me was marriage. If I wasn't married, my mother swore I was going to end up, AIDS was new for us back in the we didn't know how you got it, what was going on. First we were like, it's a gay disease, that kind of job. So I wasn't worried about it. Then after a while, you realize everybody can get it. And so my mother was convinced I was going to end up, because right before I got married, I had, and my mother, 20 women called the house today. I said, well, Mom, I can't sleep with 20 women. It's too many. But I was trying. I was making an effort. So I was out there with that kind of stuff. But
you on that Wilt Chamberlain pace, and I've always been amazed at what the rate of interaction that must have required. I'm like, wow.
And I never told him, it's just you. It's just you. I was surprised when I asked my wife to marry me. I'm like, I'm ready to give them all up, right? But it wasn't the sex for me. It was just looking at the curve of a woman's back, looking at her arms sitting on her lap some kind of way, or it was that kind of shit. When her head turns for me, but that was a saving for me, because from what was done to me from 4 to 5, and that's a short time. Some people have suffered that for 10 years or whatever, right? It could have made me easily hate women.
Yeah.
Thank God it didn't,
Yeah, right on. And again, I appreciate you, speaking on all of that, both in the book and here. So as I titled the video for today, an African Renaissance man, it was just what came to mind as we were putting this together. I mentioned early on that you've written, you've produced audio, you've talked about the films. I did want to ask a little bit about some of the specifics. I admit I'm curious about sort of guerrilla media making, and in this case, filmmaking. Could you talk a little bit about the production process of making a film without Disney's budget?
Without budget, Disney's budget shit. So when we did A Single Link, that's a martial art film. So that was pretty easy, because when I wrote it, my wife starred in it, right? I wrote the part for her. So what happens in that is this woman, this one thug is being aggressive with this 2 women at this bus stop. And this brother, comes up, and he's like the hero. I mean, lead these women along. Blah, blah, blah. He beats the thug's ass. He tells the women to come with him. And the character that my wife plays is like, nah, I don't think so, but thank you. And this other woman who's pregnant, she's desperate to get the hell out of there. She's like, come on, just come with. I don't want to go by myself. So she says, okay. So they go get in the car with him. He takes the pregnant woman home. He brings my wife's character home. She has grocery bags. He said, well, let me help you with your grocery bags in the house. She helps. I mean, she allows him to help. And then the rape happens. She finds out that he's an MMA champion, and she wants to fight him. Her husband, who is a martial artist, and he's in that world, his best friend owns Work, which is the World Extreme. I forget what I call it, but it's like UFC. And so his friend agrees to let it happen, because he says, well, shit, if if she wins, well, some people are going to hate it that a woman is fighting a man, and some people are going to love it, but everybody going to watch it. So he's thinking dollars. And if she wins, women going to go crazy. It's going to be, and some men. If she loses, we talk about abuse of women, blah, blah, blah. We turn the guy who fought her into a villain. And so they can convince this one fighter to do it. He said, well, I'll do it, And they offer him a lot of money. They fight. So she goes through the ranks, goes up, and ends up fighting the guy. Well, the way that film is done is it starts with pre-production. You write it first, right? And so I wrote specifically for her. And then since I know a lot of martial artists, especially in Atlanta, I probably know all the black martial artists. I sent out a call for martial artists, and some I didn't know came to audition for the film. And me and my right hand, Akin Bobala, brother from England, he's a UK representative. Me and him, we auditioned everybody. So they had to be able to act and they had to have martial skill. And I knew what I was looking for. I wanted her to fight a capoeira person. I wanted her to fight a 52 blocks person. I wanted her to fight a karate person, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu person. So we got all these people except the 52 blocks person. And I have comrades and friends who are 52 blocks practitioners now, but I didn't then. But so we're picking the people and everything. So, and that's casting. So you go through your casting process. And if you have no money, cast your friends, cast people within your circle that you know, right? We used a house that Akin Bobala was flipping as the place to meet and to train together and everything. We used that house. So everything was just kind of like gifted to us. We needed a ring to fight in. So there's a boxing gym that's owned by Layla Ali's ex-husband, Yahya McClain. So I went to Yahya. I gave him the script. He looked like, oh, this is dope. He said, yeah, y'all can use my gym if I get a part. I said, I'll be back in an hour. I went off to the side, wrote his parts through there. He's like, oh, yeah. And he let us use the gym. He said, I give you all the whole day in the gym. I can only do one day. I'll shut down for that day, and y'all can use it for the whole day. So we had to shoot all the fight scenes in one day. So my wife had to do back-to-back 5 fight scenes in one day, right? At that time, she had it. Now, I mean, 40, but back then she had the ability to do it, the physical ability to do it. So she put in that work and did all those fight scenes. Now, a fight scene, you say, well, she only fought, 5 times. No. A fight scene is like 40 to 100 takes, depending on, hopefully you get it right, but mistakes going to happen. So it's like, I think the shortest take was 40.
Wow.
For each fight, right? And so she was, blasted afterwards. She was so tired, But, certain things happen in the movie. You ain't got money, so you can't do much editing, cutting out shit. So one scene, we talking to our neighbor, who the neighbor was it wasn't really our neighbor, it was a sister playing the role, and she ends up working out with my wife in the movie, and she's the comic relief. But as we're talking to her, I'm holding my daughter in my arms. Okay. At that time, she's probably about 8 months old, and I'm holding her, and something just told her to bite me. While we're talking, she goes, ah, hey, and that's in the movie. I go, ah, I said, a little warrior here. I play it off. I'm like, oh, my shoulder was hurting like a mug. So afterwards, everybody just laughing, like, man, she bit the hell out of me. And I give it to my wife, put a Band-Aid on that, we go right back to shooting. Right. So when we shot the scenes with the neighbor, that's actually shot at my house and the house next door. I talked to them. They allowed us to shoot on, their porch too. So we shot that at our house and the house next door. The scene where the person who becomes her husband talks to her after she's raped, that's shot in our bedroom. And we use lighting to change the way it looked. And we used the bedroom for something else. We changed the lighting and rearranged some furniture. So, you just got to do that kind of stuff. And then we need to get shots in certain areas. We just go to those areas. Somebody looking out for the police. If the police come, we pack up. We wait for a minute. Go back when they leave. That kind of stuff, man. You got to get it done. The big weakness of film, if you're going to do it, is getting somebody to edit it to make sense. That's the hardest thing. And in Atlanta, now in New York, you probably got editors on every block. Chicago too. But you're going to have to pay for it. If you don't have the money to pay, and if you have any money, a small budget, you say I only got $2,000. Get as much free as you can get done. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to use that to buy costumes. Man, you better use shit you got from your closet, right? Just don't use stuff that like this in a film, because whoever made this, you can get sued.
Great shirt, though.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but we could talk to, Jared, Kalanji, Air Doctor, Kamal. Hey, can we use the BPM shirt? That kind of thing. You could have a conversation with cats, but save your money as much as you can to pay an editor. Get a good editor. Because that's what you want. That makes the film. The director tells the story, but the editor makes the film. Right.
Hey, she don't know it yet, but my oldest is showing an interest in some talent in video editing.
Oh, cool.
And she's about to get a hooked up winter solstice gift in next month. So she can start working. She's going to start working on this program.
Well, those are the real storytellers. So in college, they gave us a film, like a 5-minute film, for us to edit and tell a story. And this film was dramatic. Everybody's doing drama in different ways. I did a comedy. That's just editing, just a film that you have. And so I was able to change that to a comedy based on how I cut it. And that's the power of editing. So an editor can make your job hot, or can make it hot garbage. So get somebody, you can go to, it's a certain website. I don't want to give them no shine here, but there's a certain website you can go and get cheap editors.
Yeah.
So
no, you're right. That's what I'm on. She showed interest. I have the one thing I've committed to my children. I've told them, if you exhibit, obviously if you're doing all you're supposed to be doing and behaving, all that, if you exhibit a legit interest in something, I'm all in. I'm gonna pour every resource I got into what you need. So she been messing with the little basic iMovie and creating these little joints. Cool. She got some skill. I was like, so she about to get some heavy, well, relatively speaking, heavy investment. And she's and we've actually been, I've said I don't want my children working out here in the world if we can avoid it.
Right.
But I'll hire her to work for me.
Excellent. Jared, give me 1 minute. I'm so I'll be right back.
Oh yeah, no worries. And in fact, this is all good. We can there was a couple things I wanted to mention anyway while Baba takes a quick pause for the cause. Couple things very quickly. Speaking of fun, for those not invested and not currently losing all their money in this crypto collapse, among the very interesting things are some of my favorite platforms have some disagreements over it. So if folks have been paying attention, CoffeeZilla, who I think does the best work on this stuff, has a little thing happening with Spencer Cornelia. They got a little thing, and they've said that they have a difference of opinion on the role of YouTube and other influencers on encouraging people to invest. Not that they pay attention, but I did humbly let them know that I will happily host the debate. And I told them I disagree with both of you. So I'm you know, in the sense that, you know, neither one of them is as far left as I am. So I was like, you know, I'll host it and then, you know, and watch it. But anyway, but very interesting debate. And I hope it does happen. Cause I think anyway, there's good stuff there. Obviously, as a platform, we want to continue to raise up and support the case of Kevin Johnson. So please go to the platform, Riot Starter in particular. I've done a little bit on it, but Remix has done, you know, just a platform in general for our discussion of Kevin Johnson and ways to support him. The time is running out as they are looking to put him to death very soon in the next couple of weeks. For as Baba was saying, having the nerve to desire to protect, but whatever we think about the accusation or what has been decided is a crime, or the conviction, he should not be put to death, and we should, you know, look to support him as much as possible. The quote unquote other politically imprisoned Kevin Rashid Johnson is himself struggling with illness. So we want to support him as well. But in this immediate moment, Kevin Johnson, who again, you can hear more about throughout our platform, is someone we want to continue to encourage people to support. And then very quickly, before we bring Baba back up here, I mentioned the other day, I watched the Math Hoffa platform, and I noticed that when they had Peter Rosenberg, who hip hop heads will know has been a voice in hip hop and New York radio for decades, Math Hoffa hosted a conversation in which Peter Rosenberg, among many other things, encourages non-Jews not to use the word Jew, just as a caution, given that so many, you know, have associated a negative, you know, connotation with it, that they, you know, he was warning, you know, just to protect yourself, say Jewish. And I tagged them both, again, not that they pay me any attention, but I tagged them both and said that this is not helpful, that's not, Jew is not a bad word. And in fact, is the accurate term. So if there's an issue with how people are using it, that should be discussed and addressed directly. And if you're having a conversation with Black people about the relationship between Black people and Jews, that's not the answer to say don't use Jew. But really my point was, this is just indicative of the very limited nature of the conversations that keep happening around this issue and why we end up right back at them. So if there's any genuine interest in ever breaking this pattern, that's not the approach. Saying very, I think, silly things like don't use the word Jew doesn't help anybody. That's not going to help anybody better understand the situation or the relationship, et cetera, and so forth. So I posted that. I think because both of them are big enough social media influencers and blue checks and everything, they have a whole team. They have teams or support networks, each of which reach or responded to me in different ways. So I did have a back and forth with someone who I did identify was an actual person who works with Math Hoffa, and they just wanted to assure that they were interested in expanding the conversation. You know, they were looking, you know, whatever. And I was just saying, you know, I love the show, but this is just not wasn't helpful, blah, blah. So anyway, we'll see if anything develops along that, you know, as it, you know, continues on, if there's any further response or engagement, I let them both know if they're happy. I'm happy to talk with either one of them should they be interested, though I don't expect that will happen. Anyway, let's get back to the program at hand and bring Baba back up here and get back to the discussion of African martial arts and fighting sciences. Back in just a second.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
All right, back again. Thank you, sir. Glad we could accommodate the break, and let's go ahead and continue. I don't remember exactly where we left off, so I'll just come back with it.
We left off about the editing, but
yeah,
we can talk about whatever you want. It's just that's the process of film,
Well, one question that came up, I wanted to make sure, and I was going to get to this anyway, but just in general, whether it's your movies or your work in general, where would people find your film? Where would people find your books, your audio dramas, all of that work?
Okay. Well, the audio dramas is called Blacktastic 1 and 2. There are only 2. That's on. I'm terrible with these things. God, what do you call it? Where you have the albums and all that stuff. Not good, but
like what, like Spotify or something, or iTunes?
I'm saying not Spotify. It's
iTunes.
It's got an orange background. See, I'm terrible with this stuff. This
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud. There you go. So, so that Blacktastic is on SoundCloud. There are only 2 episodes. Those were actually taken from an anthology that I am a contributing editor to. That's called Rococo. I created that. So, that was a big movement. I'm sure people have heard of steampunk, right? So steampunk, that's 1837, 1901. We weren't included in that conversation, so we came up with steampunk. Diesel funk is in that era from World War I through World War II, or some people say World War I through 1947. That they call that diesel punk, told from an African lens. That's diesel funk. Okay, and then they have what they call Rococo punk, which is, of course, it precedes steampunk. We call that Rococo, ROCOCOA, like cocoa, right? And so I produced this anthology and edited it called Rococo. So we took that book and we took the stories from that, some of the stories, and we made Blacktastic. That's on SoundCloud. As far as my movies, so there's one movie you'll see me on the cover and all of that. That is Reynolds War, and you'll find that in gas stations, actually.
Wait, what's the name of it?
It's called Reynolds War.
Reynolds War.
Yes.
There's no online. There's nowhere online.
No, so all this stuff was done before there was streaming and
right.
So I have it on DVDs and boxes downstairs.
So we need to get because Quaker Anarchists had a good suggestion that we have a BPM watch party. So what we need to do first is we need to get but your other film, someone was saying, is on YouTube.
Well, that's Champion Road. So Champion Road, I'm just acting in that. It's a martial art film, Champion Road and Champion Road Arena.
Okay.
Those aren't mine. If one of my movies is on YouTube, then it would probably be a single link.
Yeah, that's the one that they were saying is online.
I had no clue. So normally with the technological stuff, I let my students do it. Until
we need to have like we need to have a digitization. Like I feel like we need to intervene to digitize some of this get it online, and then we could talk about doing the watch parties and whatever else.
For sure. But I do have them on DVD, but ain't nobody dealing with DVDs no more.
No, but there are ways to go from DVD to digital. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
I mean, I know it can be done. I don't know exactly how to do it, but I know it can be done. So yeah, you know, as Emma said, it's simple. So, and I'm
cool. Well, if anybody wants to digitize it, let me know. I'll get it sent to them, and then we can watch it.
And then I think the other suggestion I would offer for you is to get a link tree, so that there's one page that has all the, you know, that people can access to get to all your stuff, because you know there's been a whole lot. And I used to have a couple of devices so I could digitize cassettes and CDs and stuff. I don't have that stuff anymore. Anyway, yeah. Okay, let's make it happen. Let's do it.
Okay,
I don't know. Let's do it. So listen, as we start to sort of head towards 10 o'clock, there were a couple other things I wanted to raise, and then if others have comments or questions, I'll try to run back and grab some.
All right.
You, in your book, you among others that you shout out is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And if I understand that there was a moment in time where you worked in training the Nation of Islam, is that right? Or could you talk a little bit about your interest in Muhammad, in the NOI, and if I'm hearing this or if I'm remembering this correctly, could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I was in the Nation for 12 years.
Oh, okay.
At Mosque number 2, which is Mosque Mariam, Chicago. Okay. I was a young man in it, and to be honest, hate to say it now, because I during that time there was a lot of people being accused of being agents. Mm-hmm. If you had certain skills, and so I was one of those, and that's why I left, to be honest. But I was in the military at the same time I was in the Nation, and that's a no-no. But I love the Nation so much that I wouldn't, divulge that. Looking now, and people who knew me, closely knew, but people looking now probably, I knew that mother, and wasn't an agent, but because in the Nation say you can't serve two masters, so you can't be in the Nation, and you can be police and in the Nation, but you can't be military and in the Nation at the same time. Yeah, and you're still serving the state if you're a cop, but it's looked at differently,
I mean, Malcolm was right. The police do locally what the military does internationally. That's really the only distinction. But yeah. Okay. Wow. That's interesting. Okay.
SWAT is trained pretty much just like SF, it's just not as intensely, or maybe they are trained, but SWAT is like the SF of the police. So in the Nation, I ended up working at the house, the National House, which is where Minister Farrakhan lives. And, certain stuff I would see people say about Minister Farrakhan, I can understand people's feelings towards him, but certain stuff is bullshit, man. When I was compared to Diallo, the one thing I have, I'm an African and I'm a warrior, so I don't disrespect my elders. Farrakhan is almost 90 years old, so we ain't got to be talking about the man, his die job. That's some bullshit. And I said and stand on it. I really don't care what folks think about that. And I'm not defending Farrakhan other than I'm defending my elder. You don't do that. Can you imagine somebody talking about some shit about Yoruba? it would be totally ridiculous. Now, of course, the Rubens politics are much more sound, much more, way, a million times more sound than Farrakhan's, but still, that's an elder. Okay. So I don't do that. And you don't see me online bashing brothers either. I wouldn't bash Diallo for saying that. You don't even feel the need to. But what was said was bullshit. Okay. I don't want to say bullshit because it was accurate, but it didn't need to be said.
You just disagree. I mean, you disagree. That's all. I mean,
right.
that's
so and I just felt I had to say that because it was on my heart. But so I was in the nation for years, and I've heard people just say stuff because they don't know what the hell they talking about. They just make up shit. Now, if you got an issue with the man, have an issue with what you know is said. Don't just make up stuff, because I've had that done to me. People just saying all kinds of stuff, just making up shit. When my last daughter was born, before them, she's 13 now. When she was born at home, everything's fine. But my wife had certain issues, so we took her to the hospital. There was some people we were with at that time was saying who I had left, but my wife was still with. And they were saying that, and this ain't the nation, by the way, but they were saying at the hospital, I went off on the nurses and the doctors, and I threatened to kill the doctor and all that, because somebody who was there with me, was talking, and they went way too far. First of all, the doctor comes in and tells me, because I wasn't allowed to go back there, of course, while they doing what they had to do. He said, you're lucky your wife didn't lose her womb. I said, no, you're lucky. Because if you had taken my womb without my permission, you would have had a problem. That's what I said. I didn't say I want to kill a man. I said, no, you're lucky. People thinking they know me assume I would have killed the man, right? I'm not going to say what I was talking about doing. Well, I was talking about suing or what, but he would have paid a price for that. And honestly, I don't think killing wasn't on my mind at that time. It was about my wife. Is she okay? And then I went off on the nurses. Goddamn right. When I asked the nurses, can I get a diaper for this is a newborn baby. She was just born hours ago. Can I get a diaper for my baby? They said, yeah, sure. Let us examine her. I said, no, she doesn't need an exam. She's fine. My wife is the one that's here. Well, you can't get a diaper then. I said, well, fuck you then. It was that simple. No, you're not going to examine her. Fuck you. I didn't go off. So stuff has been said about me. People make these assumptions. People make weird assumptions about martial artists. If I had a number of times, if I got a nickel for the number of times people said to me, hey, don't hurt me, when they find I'm a martial artist, I would be able to buy a Benz. And I always tell people, I'm not a psychopath. I'm a martial artist.
Right.
My thoughts are not on hurting you. People love saying that. Don't hurt me. Like, what? What are you talking about? So all that kind of misrepresentation. So I'm not with that misrepresenting people because I don't like that motherfucker, or because I see, a certain way Farrakhan got a gold toilet at his house and all that. No, he does not. No. You're speaking without knowing what you're talking about. So you got to know what you're talking about, man. Before you say that kind of stuff. Farrakhan started wearing the bow tie, just started back, called such and such. Because at first he's wearing the straight tie, called such and such. Minister Farrakhan was wearing, when I was in the nation back in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was wearing straight ties then. So was I. Now, there were people who were young saying, man, why you wearing that hypocrite tie when I wear a straight tie? I'm like, you can be a hypocrite in that bow tie, dude. The reason why the bow tie is worn, by the way, and that's the clip-on bow tie, it's not the tied bow tie, is if somebody tries to choke you, it comes off easily. So Minister Farrakhan would wear a straight tie because, I mean, who just walking up on him, choking him, he got so much protection around. That's why. And then anything he does now, you know, the nation's full of sycophants, right? So he wore a straight tie. Now everybody wearing a straight tie. It wasn't because, you know, he wanted to be accepted by so-and-so so he could, that's not true. He was wear that at different events. We go to different events with him. He wearing a tuxedo, have a bow tie with tuxedo with a straight tie. I'm telling you, fact. I'm not just making a guess or because I don't like him, so I want to make fun of him, man. Let's not do that to folks. But I'm gonna leave that alone because I know we got a few minutes.
No, I mean, you don't have to leave it alone. I think, I mean, and I'm not rushing you. I'm trying to be mindful of the time. We don't have to wrap right at 10 or whatever. I mean, it's up to you, but so if you have more to say, by all means. But,
is somebody, Bobby Ologun. Okay. That's hilarious. But anyway, I'll leave that alone.
Yeah, he's talking about, you know, and to the extent I'm following the chat, I mean, I think, Bobby is speaking to a certain point that
So now Scientology. Okay. Student of mine asked me, would I be in the nation right now? He asked me, you know, after science, he said, would you be in the nation right now knowing what you know? No. Would I join the nation knowing what I know? No, absolutely not. Would I, even without the Scientology, would I have joined, knowing what I know now, having my politics now, would I have joined the nation when I was young in my early 20s? No. If I knew what I knew now. But if I knew what I knew now, also, there are many things I wouldn't do. I wouldn't have been out there messing with all them girls and all that. There's a lot I wouldn't do now. Because my politics are different now, you know. So when you say Scientology, I wasn't in there when the Scientology was going on. So, you know, Scientology is wrongful. It's a pyramid scheme, full stop. I don't know if it's a pyramid scheme, but I ain't with it.
But there's a lot going on here, and I am of multiple contradictory minds on this. I agree with you, and I appreciate your point about how we should raise criticism of elders or really anybody else. And I know, and I believe, at least, you know, to the extent, you know, that you're talking to Diallo, that's fine. But I think, you know, I'm in line for some of that criticism too. So I you know, but to what I see in Bobby's point in the chat, you know, my thing is I think there are number of areas where I would disagree with Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, and or in involvement with Scientology would be one of them. And I think you can raise that without any, you know, making speculation about ties and bow ties and length of ties and all that kind of stuff. The other thing is, to your point, is that as I understand how things work in the nation, and it's strictly as an outsider, you know, I have very limited knowledge of the inner workings, but having been to the mosque on a number of occasions to see a number of ministers speak, and having dealt with a number of folks in the so-called rank and file of the nation, what goes on with leading ministers and the leadership in general is not always known to the people in the seats in the mosque. So the person joining the nation off the street may not even be aware of any relationship between the nation and Scientology, or wouldn't even necessarily understand what that meant. Because it's not, from what limited experience I've seen, they're not preaching about it in the mosque. They're not giving sermons on Scientology in the mosque, as far as I've, you know, again, limited, you know, but so you're getting, you know, when you go to the mosque, you get kind of a standard sermon. Yeah. You know, sometimes people take shots at Malcolm here and there and stuff like that indirectly. They still do that and all that kind of stuff. But you get a standard sermon. So you're not going to get all of that stuff. So anyway, so just to that point, you might not have even known, people in the nation might not even be aware of you know, so anyway,
Absolutely.
Obviously, like I said, say more to, you know, as much as you want, but a couple other things I did want to raise here before we wrap up. And if folks have comments or questions, please restate them for me if you would, and I'll find them. So having been in your position in training, and particularly in Atlanta for so long, I think a lot of people, myself included in this audience, what we really want to know, Baba Balogun, is how nice is Kalonji for real with those hands?
Right. So now, I'm gonna give you the real on Kalonji. So if I taught Kalonji technique, empty hand technique today, he would still be struggling with it in 2027. But you put a tool in Kalonji's hand, stick, hammer, whatever, he's nice. It's something he's more attuned to tools than the empty hand. And the empty hand he would like to do that, but his coordination, he dances more like a white dude than a white dude. his coordination, ain't there where it should be. But that's my brother. I love him.
We clipping that. We clipping that part. Somebody clip that. One thing that I would like to do, because I am paid. It's just jokes. I'm just messing around. But one thing I would like to do, and I think this is definitely a goal of mine in 2023. I would like to with your permission, obviously, show up and go through a training session, and I think we should broadcast that and have a little fun with a jab, because we gotta you got a couple people get a little laugh here at Kalonji's expense. I might have something to provide. I might offer up a little something at this, but I need the 50 and over with injury version of the training.
Oh yes, sir.
So that's the only caveat I need to on the record request. But I would like to do that. I think that would be. I would like to do that.
And heart attacks. And I still train. So we'll definitely take care of you.
Right on. Now you mentioned it earlier. I made a note of it. If you can, what happened with Marvel?
So I wrote to Marvel about Luke Cage, and that I wanted to do a limited series for Luke Cage, 4-issue limited series, and I wrote out the treatment for the limited series, sent it to Marvel. They wrote me back, said Luke Cage is not a viable hero. Nobody's interested in Luke Cage. This was back in, I want to say, 92.
Wow.
Nobody's interested in Luke Cage. He would never be. Of course, they made. So the crazy thing is not just that they brought out Netflix, a decade and a half later, but that they brought out a Luke Cage limited series about a year later, and it was my story. They had just changed the names of the characters.
They did you like Sylvia Winter?
Man, hey, look. So
do you know her?
No.
Any chance you know her? Not Sylvia Winter. I'm tripping. Not Sylvia Winter.
I know you're talking about
Sophia Stewart.
Yes.
Sophia Stewart.
And I have my doubts about her writing the Matrix.
Okay.
But I did do that. Now, and people say, well, people have these ideas. I mean, it was so close to what I did that it really disheartened me. So
yeah, man,
I decided I don't want to write anymore. Now, recently, so I write science fiction and fantasy, but for about 2 years, 3 years, I stopped. No, about 3 years, because it was before COVID. I stopped writing science fiction and fantasy because of the stuff I was seeing in Hollywood, and from friends I know who they writing stuff with black characters, but they didn't give a damn, and it was too much. So one thing I write is sword and soul, and I like Sword and Soul, but in Sword and Soul, like Once Upon a Time in Africa, right? It's about a princess who's supposed to get married. She's supposed to marry the greatest warrior. And she said, well, the greatest warrior I know is my teacher, who's a woman. So how's that going to work? And so they decided to have this tournament of the greatest warriors across the continent, and they fight. And now what I did to redeem, they end up, there's an invading force from the north. You can guess who that is, from, what they call the Middle East now, but some people do. That is coming, so they have to decide if they're going to continue to fight each other or they're going to protect themselves against that invading force. Well, a lot of Sword and Soul is you just fighting, it's just black folk fighting black folk. Because for a while, I'm like, the idea of science fiction and fantasy was making me nauseous. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't write it. And I'm like, why? And it's because it's so much, it's rooted in Sword and Soul because there's so much violence, black on black violence, that it was getting to me. Right? And I started, and what made me really notice that, and I was writing it, but what made me notice it is white people love Sword and Soul. Oh, wow. You're not into any other like science fiction fantasy that we write too much, but Sword and Soul. So I wrote a book called Beneath the Shining Jewel, which is about, I did a rework on zombies. It's about a zombie apocalypse, but during the 1400s, right, in Africa. And the zombies, they eat skin and muscle and tendon to feel better, to relieve anxiety. It's a mental issue. And so it's not like they got some kind of virus or anything like that. They have a mental issue, and to relieve that, they eat flesh. And so I wrote in that, so, they call it Narmals, right? But they still, so they kill the Narmals. There's a special force that kills the Narmals, and they had retired, and all these dudes, they got alcoholism and all stuff from when they fought them 20 years earlier. But they have to bring them back, right, to fight because a resurgence has come up. But I realized, okay, they are Narmals, but they're still black. And several friends I have write Sword and Soul, and it's just black folk fighting black folk and white folk just eating it up. And that is what got to me. So, because I was wondering why I can't, the ideas come to me, I just want to throw up. Just doing it because I didn't want to produce nothing for them for their pleasure of us killing each other. So that caused an issue with me, right? And that is how Ice Cold Carter came into being. I decided I wanted to do something that was funny, but also hidden, not hidden really, but in that he has some politics in there, even though he crazy as all get out, right? And so, I wrote the first, since in years, 3 years, the first novel I wrote since then has been Ice Cold Carter, Who Killed Craig, which is a mystery novel where Ice Cold Carter has to solve who killed his brother named Craig. And so that's interesting.
So I was late to this. So that was next up for me. This is perfect segue. I wanted to ask you about Ice Cold Carter because I thought initially this was a creation of Belays for warrior class. I thought that's how late I was.
No, so it was. We first did him as a commercial for our class.
That's what I meant.
I wrote that and I said, I want Belay to play Ice Cold Carter, and he just brought it to life more than I expected, or more than anybody else I think could have, right? So he even said he has to remember sometimes that I created Ice Cold Carter, that he didn't, because I said, well, we both really did. I wrote Ice Cold Carter. I write the stories and the lines, but you brought that to life. So people know Ice Cold Carter through your acting.
So so that's another thing I want to suggest, that we crowdfund for the making of this novel, this murder mystery, into another movie, into your next film featuring Belay as Ice Cold Carter. I just saw, the best part of being at the movies yesterday was seeing the preview for the next Knives Out film, which I admit I'm awaiting, and a similar film that's on these streaming services called Amsterdam, both of which look like films that I would love to see that are deserved in the African world. But I'm very much interested so after having seen those, I think we need to get a BPM produced. What's the name of the murder mystery again?
Ice Cold Carter. Who Killed Craig?
Who Killed Craig? We need a Who Killed Craig fundraiser. I'm not playing. I think I would love to see a feature length Belay led Ice Cold Carter film.
Oh yes, sir.
And a murder mystery at that. I think that would be that's very dope. So I got to get the book. So where can we? Where do we get the book?
Yeah. So my books are on Amazon. I used to have a website, chroniclesofharriet.com, and it was based off of my first book was Chronicles of Harriet Tubman. Right? But I let the website go. It just wasn't viable.
Right.
Well, it was during that time when I really thought I wasn't ever going to come back to science fiction and fantasy, to be honest with you. Well, so I let it go. But so you can get my stuff on Amazon. Use Amazon.com and you put in Balogun, OJ Tade, Balogun, OJETADE. And then my books would come up. I think I have 42 books, something like that. I think I've written a lot of fiction. I want to say it's like 24 fiction books, something like that. 20.
Yeah, you got a lot. I said prolific at the top. I mean, you've got a lot. So that's definitely something. Dealing with the Real is asking, have you entered in tournaments? And I did mean to ask you about styles. You mentioned 52 blocks. Do you have, what do you say when people ask you about your preferred style, and or styles in general? And then, what is your experience with tournaments and the like?
So my preferred style is mine. So the system, there are systems and styles. So system, Balogun, which is what we do, is a system, and it's comprised of, Lamba, Gidibo, Mandinka, Kilimanjaro, and then special forces, tool work, and things of that nature. Okay. When I say tools, you're the weapon. So what you're holding is a tool. And that's from everything from firearms, bows, I'm talking bows, staves, swords, knives, rocks, throwing sand, you name it, But
hey, I'd be in warrior class, so I knew what you meant. So I hope others are equally prepared for that answer too. I knew what you meant by tool and who's the weapon, anyway. I love it. Anyway, keep going.
What was I getting? What poems I'm getting? Anyway,
I was asking you about styles.
Tournaments. So it's systems. A style is how you do it. Now this is for us. So my style is not like Belay's style, not like Ominiki's style. Ominiki is 5'2". She claims 5'2". She's really like 5'1.5". But so little Ominiki, tiny little Ominiki, compared to me, it's a whole different. She cannot fight the same as I do. So she has a style of doing things. So when a student comes to me, it's considered bad character amongst the Yoruba to only have one way to do something. It's considered bad character. If you're pushing this is the way, that's considered bad character, because there are many ways to do a thing. And so there's many ways to do a technique. If she can't do it the way I do it, and she can't, and I can't do it the way she does it, she has to find her way. And that's my job and the ones who are instructors with me, to make sure she finds her way, right? Help her find her way. We don't give her a way. We have to help her find her way. So that's what we look at with styles. Now, as far as how I've done, and yes, I've been in tournaments. I'm against my students being in tournaments, although we've been in tournaments. My student, Balogun D, he went to a tournament after training 4 tournaments for 3 months. I think he had only been training for 2 years or a year or something like that. And he beat the hell out of black belts. In fact, broke a black belt's ribs with his body. He was running roughshod over him. And he came in second, first tournament, and, you know, really had never done groundwork, and there was a lot of ground stuff. And the coaches were hating me. They're coaching their person, I'm coaching him, and I'm speaking in terms that they don't know, so they can't know how to counter it, and he's just tearing them up. So when I used to go to tournaments, a friend of mine did an art called Kuksul One, and they would have this tournament at West Point Military Academy, okay, in New York. We would go up there to compete from Chicago, and I would beat the hell out of those guys. So, I mean, you're punching like this. I'm punching like this. I'm getting to you quicker anyway, right? Mm-hmm. My friend is big in Kuksul. He was refereeing us once. And so it was this Hispanic dude. He's talking to me. And, you know, we're having a good conversation and stuff and talking about family. He's sitting behind me. We're lined up to fight. I didn't know I was getting ready to fight him. And he, boom, I hit somebody hitting the ground. I turn, look, it's him. He's staring at me like he want to kill me, right? I said, oh, okay, I see you out there. Yeah, hitting the ground. So we get up there, and Mike has his hand up. His name is Mike Hill. And he's like, you know, fight. But before I'm there, dude. I'm just right there, and Mike says, fight. Boom! Hit the dude. Now we have padded helmets on. I hit that padded helmet so hard, dude goes down, and Mike's like, you hitting too hard. And he said, man, don't kill the folks. He just whispered to me, don't kill the folks. Just, you know, whip their ass. Don't kill them. Like that. That was my boy. So he knew what I was going to do. And I ran roughshod over them. And the reason why, you say, well, okay, you know, you're that great. No, the African martial arts are so efficient. Mm-hmm. We're not wasting time with a lot of stuff. We understand shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So while you're trying to knock my head off, I'm just coming straight at you. Boom. Just you know, as hard as I can. And I'm not hitting from here. You know, they say use your hip. You're not using your hip if I'm just standing in a horse stance or standing in a extended front stance. But when I turn my heel, now the hip is really in, and I'm really hitting with power, right? So we understand that. And so I've always done well in tournaments in the fighting aspect, and my favorite is self-defense. They call it the self-defense. So you got different divisions. Self-defense division, I've always won every one I've gone to. In fact, I went to one in California, Monterey, California, when I was in the military. I took some students of mine. Everywhere I go, you know, I teach. And at that tournament, there's a brother named Anton Muhammad who does Sanuki's Ryu Jiu-Jitsu under Dr. Moses Powell. One of the few men that people, period, that I admire like that. So it's him, is Dr. John Henry Clark, is Daru Ben Wahad, and Harriet Tubman. Those are my 4 idols. Okay. So I've been blessed to meet Daru Ben Wahad, of course, and Moses Powell. Anton says to me, he just read it on me. He said, you know, I'm getting this tournament for self-defense. You? I said, yeah. He said, what age category are you? I said, 24 and under, or something like that. He said, well, I'm 40 and over, or whatever. He said, so I see we both gonna win our divisions. Just like that. And sure enough, we did. We won our divisions, right? So I love self-defense because now you're showing your actual technique. And what I do for when I in self-defense like that, if I'm and I don't do demos anymore, but or tournaments, I try to pick people from the audience I don't know to come at me. However they want to come at me, they can pick up, a wooden knife or whatever they want, and I get busy with them. They can pick up a real knife, but I'm gonna be real with them. That happened in the nation. I end up teaching the brothers the FOI in the nation for years. And there was a brother, Ronald Muhammad, elder brother. I was new in the nation at the time. I said, I want to teach the brothers, you got to prove yourself, so and so. But he ended up taking a liking to me. So he said, we're going to bring up Brother Adam. And for him, he wants to teach if he can deal with a real knife attack coming at him, then I'll let him teach the brothers. Brother named Daryl Muhammad. Daryl, you in there? You can bear this witness. Daryl says, he picks Daryl to do it. Daryl's my boy. We got closer after this, although I jacked up Daryl's wrist. Daryl says, hey, man, I'm sorry, but I got to follow instructions. I said, it's cool. I said, the realer you get, the realer I get. He says, thrust at him. Thrust the easiest thing in the world to defend yourself against. You don't want to defend against a knife, period, but you have to. Thrust is the easiest. So he thrusts. I come off, catch him in the wrist lock. And our wrist lock is not like we see the wrist lock, you just go out like that. You press the wrist down first so the person can't move. They're stuck there. And then, boom, when I threw him, he's looking up at me saying, oh, shit, I dislocated his wrist. He goes down, right? That's my boy, but hell, if you stabbing at me for real, then I'm going to act for real. I'm going to do shit for real. So, he told me, he reached out to me on Facebook last year. He said, man, my wrist still hurts. Still hurts. That was like 30 years ago, some crazy shit. But, so yeah, I've been in tournaments. I don't recommend them to my students, and they know. The reason why is because to get ready for a tournament, you have to lower your efficacy for the street. You have to. If I'm thinking in terms of points, fair play, I'm lowering my efficacy. My flow is somebody comes at me, just out of the blue. Boom, I'm defending myself first. I try to push them off. I immediately pull my tool. So you can't do that in a tournament, and the tournament will slow down that flow. Your flow now is to, outspeed them, hit them, whatever. Your timing may be great, but you're not using tools. My tool's always near me. Always some type of tool. I'm the weapon. This is a tool. Tools. This is all over the place. Tools. And it's that, if you think it's crazy, it's because your mind is not where it should be as far as your self-defense, your self-protection. When people come to class, I'll say, if it's somebody who talking tough and I do this, Pakwa master, blah, blah, blah. I say, everybody who has tools on them, throw at least one on the floor. You see students, blah, 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 my students, blah, blah, floor full of tools. I always look at that person, the eyes big as goddamn saucers. Like, oh shit, this is real. That's the beginning of either changing your mind or running you the hell up out of there. Because if you're not ready for that, at least you should question, well, why y'all wearing these things? Why y'all doing so-and-so, so-and-so? I'll be 55 in February. I can throw hands with the best of them. Why am I gonna throw hands at 55 and I just stick you in your gut? Because out there, if you put your hands on me, we're in a engagement that could end either one of our lives. If you push me, I can fall back, hit my head on the ground, or hit it on a tree or something and die. So if you put your hands on me, there's no going back from that now. There's only moving forward for us. There's only moving forward for us. And so I'm going to move towards you because it's only moving forward. I'm coming at you, right? And the way I'm coming at you, unless I'm getting ready to come at you and a bunch of people, hundreds of people or something taking pictures and shit, then I'm out. You know, and I'll see you later. So, you know, the mindset is different. So my mindset isn't for tournaments, you know, to be honest. Not
That's deep. I appreciate that. I mean, even yesterday in the theater, this little boy kept kicking my daughter's seat. And I turned around and his big ass father was sitting there, and I already had my finger on mine. It's not a gun, just be clear, but you know, I was already like, and I just said, could you please ask, you know, and he was like, you talking about my 6-year-old, my son? And I just said, and I was sitting there and I just said, you know, because I'm not going to talk to the man's child, because I wouldn't want somebody talking to my child either.
Right.
So I just said, yeah, he's kicking my daughter's seat. Could you just ask him to, you know? And then he did, and it was cool. But I was, you know,
hey,
but like you said, I mean, my hand was already. It's like, because I don't know how this is going to go. And your point, I really like that point. I really appreciate it the older I get. I mean, you push somebody, and I mean, I could fall. I mean, like I'm not sturdy like I used to be. I'm not, you know what I mean? You know, it's everything is dangerous now.
Right. Hell, I rolled with a student when we talk about rolling, we're on the ground doing techniques. And because we're not trying to hurt each other. I mean, he's trying more to hurt me. And that's the nature of the thing. I'm more skilled than him. I should be able to deal with that. So he's putting it on harder than me, and he's younger than me. I said, God damn. So I'm changing up shit, throwing them, doing all kinds of stuff. And even through myself, got him through myself on my back. Right? So I could show, you know, I'm dominant of him. Well, he knows it, so that wasn't intimidating him. He's been doing this a long time. And I said, God damn it, I'm not going to make it. His name, I'm assuming. He's an artist, Flux. He's been on the show before, on our show before. I said, damn, I'm not going to make him give up. So I'm like, you know, this is us just training here. Normally I'd be like, I ain't giving up because I ain't giving up on the street. I'm not going to give up on the street. But in this class, I said, tap, tap, tap. Because I'm tired as hell. And they picked him up off me. We don't help each other up. Normally, they would just wait for me to get up. I'm so tired. They just help me get up. Like, shit.
Well, even in the book I was reading, you said to make sure you fully incapacitate somebody with this hold, you need to be prepared to hold it for 2 minutes.
Yes, and that's a long time. People don't realize that.
That's what I said. I said 2 minutes. Because in the movies, it's like, and they out.
Right.
And I was like, 2 minutes, that is an eternity.
Now, you can knock somebody out in 10 seconds optimally, but they're moving, and that your elbow has to be under their chin. It has to be done properly, right? Well, if it's not done properly, you may be choking them, but they still can kind of move out. So you got to, until you can lock it in there, they're going to be hand fighting you. And so you got to be ready. And 10 minutes, if you all don't know, just punch something for a minute. Punch steadily for a minute and see how you feel. Hold on to your own knee like you're doing a choke, right? For 2 minutes and see what your arms feel like. You're probably going to let go before 2 minutes.
In the Navy, they used to tell us if you put boxing gloves on, you could fight and not get in trouble. That was sort of the unofficial rule. And so if there was a dispute, sometimes people would just get the gloves and go, you know, and one time I did that. We did 3-3-minute rounds. Me and this white dude, I need to fight you for real. So I don't want to get in trouble. So let's get the gloves. And the arrangement was 3-3-minute rounds. And at the time I was in shape. I was strong as hell. I was like, this is going to be, to this day, I remember I have never been more tired to this day. And I won. He had to go to the infirmary. But as soon as everybody walked around the corner, I collapsed on the floor. I just sat on the edge of the
Yeah, hey.
I have never been that tired. Just 3-3-minute rounds. I was like, so 2 minutes.
Yes.
That's a
when
long
we make
time,
an
and they're
instructor,
struggling. So yeah, anyway.
that's why when we make an instructor, whether they're assistant instructor, full instructor, master instructor, they have to fight everybody in the class. Whoever's at that test, it could be 20 students at that test. You gotta get down. You better hope only 4 showed up, and that's never the case.
Yeah.
So, like Ominiki, when she became an assistant instructor, everybody fighting her, and you go up in rank. So I'm the last person everybody fights. She's fighting with Akimbobla. Akimbobla at this time now, he's about 255. Okay. 6'3", 255 muscle. So he's a big dude. All he's doing is just changing positions on top of her, moving around, putting pressure on her face with his forearm and shit. And that's when, because also defending yourself wears you out, not just attacking. And so when he gets done and it's my turn, she looks at me, she just says, fuck. And she was just like, I felt bad for her almost. And so I just go in. I think I just put a choke on her so she tapped out because she couldn't go no longer. You know, it's just where you. But they know, okay, if I can go that long with skilled people, I can go a minute and survive. You don't want to go longer than a minute. You don't want to go. You want to get in and out of there because once you're worn out, tiredness will tell you, it's not too bad. He may kill me, but dying not so bad. It makes you start thinking wrong shit.
You're right. Absolutely.
So, don't get no long fights with folks. That's my issue with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, now some of them cats, they will get down and fight you for 24 minutes on the ground. That's too much. And I know they're tired as hell too. And I know within 24 minutes, I mean, it ain't gonna get that long with me. I'm gonna be thinking about, why am I bleeding so bad? Because I stabbed you a bunch of times because I got to get up. I got to go home. Oh, shit. I can't be down here on the ground.
I'm too tired.
Exactly. Man, so,
Hey, Yipper, I don't even remember. That's the and something that Baba said earlier on in a different context is kind of like I'm glad the worst didn't happen because I don't even remember. It was hot. We in the Navy. We out at sea. It could have been any number of stupid reasons why we ended up wanting to fight. Card game. I mean, I often acted inappropriately. I have to admit, I was not, I was not always helpful in those, so like it, I don't even know. That's why I'm glad nothing really happened. He just had to go get his nose and his whatever tightened up or whatever. It wasn't that serious. And I just was tired as shit. 30 years later, I remember that level of fatigue. I've never felt that before. It's crazy how,
that's being military strong and getting worn out.
And this dude, years later, I found out he wanted, because he at the time was talking about. I've always kind of liked this part, to be honest with you, because he went on apparently to join the SEALs. He had been talking shit about it while we were there, and then he went on to do it. Then I later heard he I don't know how, but he's died at some point. But in that moment, I was like, because I remember like part of our argument. I do remember saying to him like, you think you ain't a SEAL yet, motherfucker. Like I was like, you could tell you're not there yet,
right?
But because for a while they stayed with us during Desert Storm. The SEALs had to bunk with us and house with us. And I remember. And we can start to wrap here, but because there was one thing I did want to ask you about, and we could sort of wrap here if you're cool with it. But you exhibit a kind of what I think from as an outsider is a kind of not only just in terms of your age, but a kind of a maturity and calm and confidence that comes with knowing how you could handle situations, but not feeling like I always need to demonstrate that. And I remember this one. I always remember this one. Because again, we never had air conditioning. It was always hot. Too many people piled up on top of each other in these ships and whatnot. And we're in the thing watching the TV. and somebody behind me said something, and I popped up and turned around. It was like, what? You know, at the time I was, I'm 6'2", a nice muscly 230. You know what I mean? I was winning bench press. I was feeling. And this skinny white dude, he was a skinny white dude, but a SEAL. He was in the SEALs, and he was sitting back with his feet up. And I'll never forget the look on his face. It was just like a half smile. And it was just, he just barely said anything. It was just kind of like, man, just sit down and watch the TV. Like, it was just kind of like but the look was, I'm doing you a favor. You got to stand up, you got to shout, you got to, put your chest out a little bit. But and it worked, and I just kind of was like, I tried to play it off, and I was like, yeah. And I sat back down, and I remember thinking, like, whew, I don't want that, and he knew I didn't want that, so anyway, I see that in you a little bit, but sort of as a turn towards closing here, I did want to ask you to say a little bit about how you, when you even walk around knowing that these hands are an issue for the world. How do you, because sometimes I feel like, man, if I knew how to do a wrist lock right now, I'd fuck this dude up in the, I'd have broken some, like I always feel like I maybe don't deserve to know certain things because I won't handle it properly. But anyway, how do you balance that, or does that come with the training?
It doesn't come with the training, it comes with time. But I hate violence, I loathe it. I'm just really good at it. So I would prefer to laugh and joke with you and we chill out, but I can go from laughing and joking with you to hitting you in the throat. Belay, you in here. You can tell folks how I am, right? So Belay always says I'm the funniest person and the most serious person he's ever met in his life. Well, a lot of that comes from the way I was raised. My father said, if you're going to be dealing with ugly, and you're going to be dealing with the ugly of life. And whenever he would pick up a baby, he would say, welcome to a newborn baby. Welcome to this cruel world. Without fail, he would say that, right? But he said, if you're going to deal with the ugly, you have to deal with the pretty too. That's why I know how to play instruments, why I write, all of that, because I got to be able to deal with the beauty of it too. And I learned early on, I like the beauty more than I like the ugly. But I will get in the ugly. I will get in the mud, blood, and shit and do what needs to be done with no problem. And then go back to the pretty, because the pretty is what calls me. I told you, the shape of a woman's back and things like that. I've always been like that. So I've always liked the pretty. But I'll go with the ugly. Right? I just loathe it. Hate it. I don't like shit. Students can also tell you, I picked up a baby that was in class and I probably got the PTSD. I had sticky shit on my hands. Now, like I told you, I can be in blood, mud, and shit, but sticky candy shit on my fingers drives me nuts. That's I can't stand the ugly, right? But I'll go there, and so that's how I just know I got to go there, but let me get out of there as quickly as possible. That's how I'm able to deal with that. And when you said the guy was skinny, when I was in the military, I was 129 pounds at 6'1".
Yeah. Wow.
Most SF, I was little shit. Most SF people, SF operators, we call operators. I think SEALs are called operators as well, because you're in special ops, right? Are thin, nerdy.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember thinking, like, if I didn't know these dudes were SEALs, I'd have not thought nothing. There was only one dude I remember who came across. He was big as shit, but an indigenous dude at that. And he even, I remember one time acknowledged, I wish I was smarter at the time or more politicized at the time to talk more about it, but he even acknowledged in passing kind of, the contradiction of being an indigenous and being in the SEALs. It was a contradiction for him. but everybody was just unimpressive looking physically. Like nobody you would have thought, you know, and I'm sure would have been massive problems for a lot of people.
Yeah, I always tell people Rambo is not in the special forces. You know, that look. Now on Instagram, you see all these dudes who profess to be SF, and some of them sure are. I can tell by the way they're shooting. But they're on steroids because that's the look that people expect now. Right? I remember I was standing next to a student of mine. People have these looks of, you know, from watching movies what a martial art master should look like.
Right.
People came from different towns. So these people came from Detroit for a workshop I was doing. People, Michigan, Detroit's Michigan, Indiana, different places they were coming from as far as California. So these folks came in, it's like 30 people, and their instructor comes in and they marching kind of behind them and shit. And he walks up to me and my student, Paul. Paul's 6'4", you know, weighed about 270, huge dude, right? And he walks right. I'm right here, Paul's here. He walks right over here, nods at me, shakes Paul's hand. How you doing, master? And I didn't call myself master. My student would tell you, I call myself master instructor for years. It wasn't until a certain thing happened that I had to accept that title. But he walks up to, how you doing, master? Master Swan. And my students, he was always like, hey, you know, so he talked like that. He said, that's the master right there, you know. The dude looks at me like, is he serious? And I said, yeah, it happens to me, you know, so it's me. And once we got done with the workshop, he understood. But at first, the look, shit, when I was 16, 17 in high school, fighting grown men, the agents hated me. They would bring people from Chinatown to fight me at my high school at Whitney Young, right? Because I was beating the shit out of them, and they just couldn't take that. And so they had to bring high-level grown men. I would send their ass home with ass whooping too. You know, my dad's like, good work, boy, good work. I was 115 pounds. As tall as I am, I'm 6'1" and a half now. I was, you know, 6 feet at that time. I was skinny as shit. I was so skinny, I was embarrassed by it. Out on the street, people, so anybody here who knew me, y'all know now, I used to wear 2 pairs of pants. So I look bigger.
Wow.
And be burning up in the summer. Like, what? Yeah, like, why I'm always sweating? Because I got 2 pair of pants on to try to make my legs look bigger. I got big ass legs, by the way. But in my mind, everything just looks so skinny that I wore 2 pairs of pants. But I've always had big legs from just wrestling so much.
Well, look, so next time we'll get the story about how you went from master instructor to master. We'll save that for the next one. Hopefully we can entice that one out. But look, I really appreciate you coming through.
Thanks for having me, man.
No, I've really enjoyed. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. There's many more things I know we need to get to. I'm sure many others in the audience have questions. But I'm going to encourage folks to do what I've been doing: watch Warrior Class and pick up little gems about Baba's life here and there. Obviously in addition to the instruction. And until we can do this again and have another, deep dive with you. And like I said, I would like to have your 2 comrades with you next time too. We have to do that too, get some of their stuff. And then let's get this Who Killed Craig?
Oh man, for sure.
Movie made, man.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much again. We will make sure folks continue to look for and support your work. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it here, everybody, and thank Baba Balogun. Thank all of you for joining us today. Please continue to support the rest of the channel. Warrior classes on Saturday afternoons. Make sure you're all subscribed up, bells linked, so you click so you don't miss whenever things are happening. We know he's willing to fight for it, so it's easy to say peace to Baba Balogun, as Fred Hampton would say, and to all of you the same. We'll catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like It throughout the platform at BPM. Thanks, everybody. Peace until next time. Take care.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.